Hello and welcome back. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about communication and boundaries in relationships.
The sex talk.
One thing that I often see in my practice is people having a hard time maintaining their boundaries, and communication plays a big role in that. So this video is going to be really about sort of like the overlap of communication and boundaries. So boundaries can be explored in a variety of different ways. We have our body, so we have physical boundaries. We have time, so we have boundaries around time. We have emotions, so we have boundaries around emotions, and so on and so forth. And sexual boundaries, of course, is one of the main things that we're going to discuss. Boundaries are important because they set parameters so that you and your partner or partners can be clear about what is allowed, what is acceptable in intimacy, in relationships, in communication, and what is not. I am a huge fan of being very clear about boundaries via communication. That's not always easy for everybody, and full disclosure, it hasn't been easy for me either. In fact, it has taken me a lot of time. I work as a therapist, so in sessions with my clients, I really learn a lot from working with my clients. And it's not easy to set clear boundaries in these situations all the time. In fact, sometimes we're not even sure what we want the boundary to be or what we need the boundary to be, and so that can make it even trickier. But some boundaries we're super clear about. Some people are super clear that they are, this is kind of a broad example, but some people are super clear, for example, that they are monogamous and they would never date somebody that is part of the polyamorous community or even venture into ethical non-monogamy. That's one example of having a clear knowledge of a boundary that you have. Something else might be, I'm going on a date tonight and my boundary is on first date, I don't do any physical contact on the first date, right? I don't kiss. I might shake their hand or give them a hug, but that's as far as it goes on a first date. No kissing on a first date, for example. These are some examples of boundaries that we are clear about. And then there's all manner of boundaries that we may not be clear about. And this has been a huge one for me, because someone will say something and I'll be either with a friend or a partner or a potential partner or a family member or anyone. And someone will present an idea that I'm new to, but as a person, I've always been super open-minded, and I'll try anything, and sure. And while for the most part that's been great, because I definitely am a type of person that likes to learn from experience, I've also gotten myself into pickles before because that was not something I really wanted to do. So I ended up committing myself to a thing that I didn't really even want to do. So boundaries can be really helpful. When it comes to emotional boundaries, speaking up for what you need, being able to say no, this is a huge one for people that tend to people please and say yes to everything, like myself, which does come from trauma, in the sense that there is a history of fear of isolation. There is a history of fear of alienation. There's a history of neglect, right? Fear of neglect, history of neglect is what I'm saying. A fear of and or a history of rejection. These type of things can make us prone to becoming people pleasers or yes men, yes women, yes people that just say yes to everything because we want to be included, because we don't want to be excluded. However, sometimes we end up saying yes to things that take up too much time, take up more emotional bandwidth than we have energy for. Something that goes against our moral values, something that goes against our ethical values. When we don't say no to those things and we continue to say yes, that's where we're crossing our own boundaries and allowing other people to cross our boundaries because we haven't set any clear boundaries. So this is where boundaries become really important. One of the things that I strongly recommend around boundaries is getting clear with yourself about what you want. It's really difficult in the moment. You're at a party and someone's like, hey, let's go do such and such thing. You know, maybe you're a teenager and someone's like, hey, let's go TP this other person's house. I don't know if kids still do that these days. They did that when I was a teenager. And you're like, oh, you want to be part of the cool crowd. So you say, yeah, I'll do that. Well, then you realize that you're TPing someone's house of a person that you actually really like. And then you feel really bad. So these are all kind of examples of going against our own boundaries. Like, I didn't really want to do that thing. You know, this can happen in sex all the time. We say yes to something because we're afraid that if we don't say yes, then they're not going to like us, they're not going to call us back, that they are going to tell someone, or that they're going to be angry with us. So many of those ugly, old emotions come up sometimes in sex, and so we say yes. When we really meant, no, I'm not comfortable with that right now. I'm not ready to do that right now. And while this is probably easier to set boundaries with your partner in a long-term relationship because you know each other, it can still be difficult. It can be difficult to say, no, this is not what I want, if you can't come up with like an alternative, right? So really, communicating our boundaries is so key. The first step to knowing what we need and what we want is really getting real and honest with ourselves. So I always revert to this, and that is journaling. In my course, which I'll link to down below somewhere, it's at Sex Therapy University. I offer several courses that are at the fraction of the price of therapy because I know therapy can get really expensive. So I've created a lot of worksheets and lots of videos, as you know, and I've compiled them all into my courses so that you can do the work on your own at a much cheaper price. And one of the things that I really emphasize in my courses is doing the work, doing the writing. I provide tons of worksheets and writing opportunities so that you can really get to the core of what's going on for you. Everybody's boundaries are different. Everybody's communication needs are different. While we should all strive to communicate in a direct way, we all have our own style. We all have something that works better for me that doesn't work for this person. My courses are really all about that. And my videos, as a person that watches my sex talk, you also know that these videos also are here to help you sort of develop your own way of communicating in sexuality, in your sexual relationships, in intimate relationships, and to be able to communicate your boundaries. Getting clear about what those boundaries are so very important. And it's okay not to know. It's okay to say, I'm not sure if I'm okay with that right now. Hey, can we have some extra time so I can think about it? I'm really on the fence. I need a little bit of time. That's totally okay. It's totally okay to sit with something that you're unsure about until you're ready to say yes. And it's okay to say yes and then change your mind and say, you know what? I said yes, but I take it back. I reconsidered, and now I need to say no. And it's okay for people to be upset with you. If someone is upset with you because you said no to something that they wanted to do, that's okay. They can be upset. And if they are insightful and respectful, they won't be upset for too long. They'll respect your decision and they'll come back to you. If they're egotistical, maybe even narcissistic, then yeah, they're probably going to be mad at you and they may never come back. And frankly, that's for the best. And I know that's not an easy thing to hear. But a lot of the reasons we develop these people-pleasing habits is because we've experienced a narcissist before in our life. Someone who gave us the silent treatment, someone who never forgave us, someone who rejected us over and over and over again whenever we said no and stood up for our feelings, stood up for our rights, stood up for our beliefs. That's trauma. And that trauma can lead us to not having good boundaries because we just don't want to be rejected again, ignored, isolated, alienated. We don't want to feel those things, so we just say yes, sometimes to our own detriment. And if we say no and they isolate us, alienate us, reject us, that was scary when we were kids. But when we're old enough to take care of ourselves, you don't even have to be an adult if you're watching this. If you're 14 years old and you're scared of someone rejecting you, alienating you, isolating you, you can take care of yourself and you can say no to that person. And you will meet other people and you will find other people that are willing to be respectful of you and your time and your needs and of the things that you want and of the things that you don't want. So that's just kind of like the very scratching of the surface of boundary work. It's really hard to set boundaries when we're scared. And so, you know, this sort of like the whole Me Too movement that's been happening and women coming forward about rape and sexual assault, they were too scared to say no because there's been a lot of trauma in their lives. And it's going to take some time, but over time you can learn that when you say no, because something doesn't suit you or something doesn't work for you or something is really goes against your moral and ethical values, that you're going to be okay. And you don't have to do anything that you don't want to do, and you shouldn't do anything that you don't want to do. Again, thank you for watching. I will post the links to my courses down below. In the courses, you will get access to all the worksheets, as well as these videos and more, to help you start to get really, really real with yourself so that you can start having the type of relationships that work for you, the type of sexual, intimate, romantic relationships that work for you, and really that help you get over some of the stuff that you're holding on to from years, from when you were a child, from when you were a teenager, from when you were a young adult. You can, and I'm here to help you. All right, so thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys later.
Sex Talk.